Alright, we should have 6 items in 3 packages. A little spread out, but it's interesting because it should be like 1 in this first package. I don't know if that got it enough. Yeah, it's enough. And this would be the first package. Yep. And then, yeah, this one's a good next one. Because there was 1 in that. There it is. I'm looking for this little white strip there. There's 2 in here. And then last but not least, 1 final strip. There's 3 here. 1, 2, 3. Cool. I didn't actually plan that out. I just thought about that as I was unboxing. Anyways, Urusei Yatsura TV Series Collection 2. This. Yeah, I'm trying to remember the other anime, the more recent one, where people, when they hear Darling, think of that. But Urusei Yatsura definitely did that a bit earlier. 70s and 80s, so quite a bit earlier. But, anyways, let's see. What can we tell from the back? That's region A. Audio is Japanese, so Japanese with English subtitles. That's about what I would expect. For those of you who haven't seen this, haven't seen me talk about it before, you know, this is a Rumiko Takahashi classic. You may know some of Rumiko's other anime, such as Inuyasha, Ranma Half, etc. But Urusei Yatsura was... It's my understanding that Lum Invader was kind of the face of anime for a while. And it was actually a pretty good show. This is Digimon Japanese. So this is TV Series 1. But Japanese with English subtitles. Blu-ray Voysion. Yeah, you can see there that's Japanese. With English subtitles. Region A. Revolves once again. Ooh, different underneath the slipcover. I do like the other one. I mean, this one's kind of nice because they kind of have main character vibes. I mean, even still there, but I don't know. It's sort of nice because, you know, like, well, I was going to say this one has a lot of characters, but I guess that one doesn't show off a lot of Urusei Yatsura's cast. This stuff on the inside did, though. Here you have the characters. And, you know, if you wanted to invert the cover so that it looked like the slipcover, you can. Always nice to have that option. Next up, we have Animal Treasure Island Blu-ray. Let's get the plastic off first. I see what looks like an English dub and Japanese with English subtitles. Key animation by Hayao Miyazaki. Yeah, because he directed his other things, but did he do the character designs? Maybe not. This could have been something that he sunk his teeth into before he kind of, you know, got work on more of his own stuff. I'm trying to think. It's hard to tell. It doesn't immediately strike me as a Miyazaki art style specifically, but, you know, it's interesting. Other than that, you know, I think he didn't direct it. Well, I guess I can kind of vaguely see it in that face. It's not like Sherlock Hound, where you can just feel it in a lot of the character designs. Key animation. Next up, we have Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken collection. Okay, and that looks like a Blu-ray. What the fuck is that? Plastic feels like it's kind of falling apart pretty easily. Let's see, what can we see about this? Looks like there's an English dub. Region A only. 12 episodes on 2 discs. Fate may have drawn them together, but they'll have to do the rest of the drawing themselves. Artsy show? Well, them doing art things? I'm not sure. Don't know much about this, but intriguing. The Ancient Magus' Bride. Here the... no, that's not here. That's The Boy from the West and the Night of the Blue Storm. Which I got the impression might be something that takes place in between seasons 1 and 2. I do recall there being stuff that I needed to catch up on before season 2. And since I didn't remember season 1 and what I would need to catch up on and all that, I kind of blanked on not watching season 2. So if you're curious why I didn't watch it, that would be why. I see it regions A and B there, which is good and noteworthy. But otherwise, it's kind of hard to read this. Hi guys. Because I'm curious how long it is. It's apparently not too long. Yeah, 3 episodes. Sounds about right. Sounds about like what I remember vaguely seeing on Crunchyroll and saying, I don't know what to do, so I guess I ended up not doing that. Then, last but not least, Iria, Zeiram the Animation. Zeiram? Zeiram. Master Collection. I wonder what's master about it. I mean, it's on Blu-ray, so, you know, if you don't have it on Blu-ray and you wanted it, I guess it's there. That's a Region A, that's a English dub as well as Japanese with English subtitles. Killing Dimension Action. Different underneath the slipcover. These do feel like some very iconic art for this. I vaguely recall something notable about the DVD release. Maybe it was a steel tin or something like that. It's definitely a very fascinating looking character. That's an invertible art in case you like that. But, you know, overall, pretty good. Region A. Alright, well, I'm definitely not seeing as many DVDs these days, so here's this week's anime Blu-ray collection update. And yeah, I know, I still call it a DVD collection update, and I don't know what to say about it. Maybe I should be calling it something else that's an anime home video collection update or something like that. But that's a side thought that's just coming out here in this part of the video, which is kind of weird. But let's talk about the stuff I actually watched. So, you know, my friend that I get together with every Friday, we're finally at a place where we could catch up on Demon Slayer Swordsmith Village Arc, the English dub episodes, which was not as many episodes as I thought there were. I thought it would be like, oh, I guess we're going to watch all the remaining ones, I guess. And no, it was just episodes 6, 7, 8, 9. 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 4 episodes. It feels like it's been longer than a month since I saw the episodes last with them. It's just time stretches. Oh, jeez. And here comes a strong yawn out of nowhere. Jesus, sorry about that, y'all. And so, what can I say about the episodes? You know, they're very nice. There's some part of me that felt like, oh, these are distractions. I guess, in retrospect, and this was while I was watching and I was having this retrospect, even though they were distractions, they were kind of nice. You can kind of feel like it drew things out a bit, but maybe not like stretching it unnecessarily so much as, oh, well, I guess we're learning interesting backstories of a bunch of different characters. A lot of very interesting twists that happen here and there, but to some degree, I'd say it maybe felt like it was putting off a conclusion, I guess, and they are trying to make sure that we aren't too careful about what was I about to say? How was I about to say that? I'm just struggling to say it mostly because my brain's trying to figure out how to say stuff without being too spoiler. But I guess to a certain degree, the show does want to be a little careful about us seeing the main character succeed fully, which to a certain extent should make some sense because, you know, the demons are supposed to be dangerous and we don't want it to feel like it's not too safe or something like that. But there's a little off feeling that's not necessarily off in terms of, oh, this show's unwatchable, so much as it's just like, I don't know, feeling like, I guess it's, yeah, I guess the issue is it makes it feel like it's tonally wavery. Like, what kind of a story is it trying to tell? Well, it seems like it's setting things up to be certain ways, but it feels like it doesn't want to commit entirely to those. And while I kind of agree with the anime that maybe it shouldn't, it's still kind of a weird feeling if you think about it. But otherwise, it's a very enjoyable show, and these were an enjoyable 4 episodes. Hulk episode 3. So I mentioned that if there was some sort of story twist that I thought might happen, it set itself up so it could happen in episode 3, but it didn't. So I guess evaluating where the show was at episode 3, maybe it's a fine evaluation. It's hard to say. It's interesting. It's curious. There's definitely things I want to see, mysteries I want to go see more of, but I just don't see how the general premise of how it started is supposed to last long term. Which makes me think that it's not a very successful 3-episode pacing, but at the same time, the makers of the show are at least pacing it well in regards to probably the original source material. I'm saying that just because it doesn't feel like they said, oh, well, we have to get all this stuff in by episode 3. Maybe they're doing the right thing. Let's see, Sacrificial Princess and the King of Beasts, episode 15. Let's see. It's hard to remember my impressions of it because this one was so long ago. I kind of remember some of the stuff that did happen, and I remember enjoying it pretty well. The way some of the characters are interacting with each other is definitely interesting. But I'm trying to remember how our main characters felt in that because, they're a little more they're a little more noteworthy. And while the show doesn't have to be about them every single episode, I can't help but feel like there was more to what those characters did and said that I'm just not remembering right now. So, okay, episode. Reborn as a vending machine, I now wander the dungeon, episode 4. It was an episode I think that would have been fraught with things that would have made it very uninteresting, but I think it pulled things through and stayed interesting through it despite elements of the premise of the episode. And I'd comment more on all of that stuff, but I'm trying not to spoil, so it's an okay episode 4. Maybe some interesting implications from things that happened in that episode, but it wasn't explored in it. So, I guess we'll see what episode 5 gives us. Undead Murder Farce, episode 4. So, like I mentioned, there is an issue where episode 3, it kind of felt like it would have made sense if it wrapped up a thing it was doing, but it didn't, and it seemed like it would take 1 episode longer, but the events that happened were overall pretty good and satisfying. If I described the first episode as a dance between the 2 main characters, episode 4 felt like a performance from both of the main characters, with each of them showing their funnest funs, I would say. Like, it felt like if everything else was them just kind of being interesting characters setting up for the eventual episode 4, then episode 4 was, now they finally performed for real. They did their real performances, and we got to see the interesting things about both of our main characters in what I thought was a very satisfying episode. And I think Coworker made a good point that it was also a good episode in terms of just saying, oh yes, and we're not just doing this because, we think it's fun.
You know, I think it would be a very watchable show if they were doing that, but it also showed that, you know, this is stuff that had something to do with the main events. So, you know, overall, very, very nice episode. The Great Cleric, episode 4. This episode kind of showcases a little bit of the stuff I was talking about that makes sense. It doesn't make sense that we haven't seen in the world, and that would be the kind of economy sort of stuff. This gives hints as to some of the stuff as to why some of the things that are being said and explored, especially by our main character, don't feel like they would actually make sense because of the economic forces involved. But, you know, that's an inconsistency that's just been there. Otherwise, you know, you can kind of enjoy where it's just going. I guess it's hard to say how I feel about the end because I know what the main character says and feels and is aiming for. But again, I also feel like the show can only continue moving forward that way because it hasn't explained this economic aspect that should be more front and centered and important part of the story going on. I guess maybe we get a good feeling for it continuing to move forward in the direction which seemed to be what might be the general premise. I'm not sure if the show feels that general premise, but it's... Maybe I'd say it does feel it, but only, like, narratively, so to speak. And so it feels a little incomplete to me in that regard, but it's entertaining enough. The Most Heretical Last Boss Queen, from Villainess to Savior, episode 4. This episode was a complete... Just the consequences from the events of the previous episode. This entire episode was about that, and I'd actually say it was pretty good. You could say that, like, maybe not a lot happened, but sometimes it's the emotions and the feelings that come up that are important, and I liked how this episode explored that and introduced a little bit more of that element to it, which is definitely making it stand out a little bit from other Reborn as a Villainous shows. Let's see, Rurouni Kenshin, episode 4. Fun episode. It's hard to think if there's anything I could, like, single out about it, because I wasn't a big enough fan of the original series that I could tell you, oh, this is how they executed it there. I can just tell you, watching this, I do like how it feels like they're remaking it, but they're not being held down by the original, but they also aren't, like, going too fast. Like saying, oh, people already saw this stuff, so let's just animate this quicker. It just really does feel like it's a good show. If somebody I think was coming into Rurouni Kenshin just watching this, I think they'd probably be enjoying it quite a bit. Whether or not they'd be enjoying it as much as the older one, I'm not sure, because again, there is that slight difference in feel, but at the same time, maybe it's easier to take this series a little more serious because it's taking itself a little more serious, but not too much more serious that you have to roll your eyes or anything like that. So overall, pretty good. Reign of the Seven Spellblades, episode 4. I've got a question. Should I be feeling like I don't, should I be having this feeling that I want to skin almost everybody in that world alive? Because it's just like, Jesus Christ, I hate you all. But, I don't know, maybe it's being a little too try-hardy in that regard. You know, what I can say for certain is that in episode 4 there, I did think that the action was actually quite enjoyable and fun, and neat, and that's definitely something going for it, and the story isn't necessarily bad. I guess I just don't understand the purpose that it is going for. But that said, you know, like I've criticized of a lot of combats, one of the reasons a lot of them I find to be not so watchable is like, oh yes, maybe there's actions going on, but to me, the show's undermining the characters doing those actions. Like, it's like, you know, if you have somebody who manages to shoot somebody else with a gun in the head, but that other person, you know, is just and it does no damage, then it's like, well, why do you show off them being able to shoot them in the head? Well, the answer to that is, if you're doing it right, you're doing it to show, okay, that person can't be taken down by bullets and they need to find something else. But a lot of actions just think, oh, yes, they took damage. And it's a kind of pointless RPG number thing. Whereas, in my mind, something like a Pokemon battle, which could be like a meaningless RPG number thing, Pokemon battles tend to be more interesting because you don't think of them in terms of, oh, yes, they literally just stood here, quonk, 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 or anything like that. The actions taken kind of represent, you know, things that happened in real time in the battle, but expressed in a kind of one-dimensional line going forward in time sort of way. And, you know, so you might imagine scenes from that happened in the anime. It's like, yeah, that's what happened here. And Reign of the Seven Spellblades was definitely not something that just felt by numbers. It felt like something where it's like you felt like there were stakes involved, and you do wonder if there's repercussions for them and what's going to happen going forward. But I think it just kind of lacks a story narrative that lets you know what you're supposed to expect from a storytelling perspective, and that makes it hard to stay as invested. It's not necessarily bad, just kind of, yeah, you know, it has its weaknesses. My unique skill makes me OP even at level 1, episode 4. What all happened in this episode? I guess a couple of things. I'd say the show's just kind of going along doing its entertaining things. It's not keeping its environment static per se. But I don't know if I can say that there's anything that feels like an actual goal here. Little interesting things introduced here and there, but still waiting to see if the series does anything to wow me, I guess. I'm not expecting it to, but yeah, whatever. Am I actually the strongest? Episode 4. I felt like some important stuff happened in this episode. Oh yeah, they established that stuff, which is the closest to something that I would say is a goal or forward-facing future element of the series, which was tricky at first because it didn't seem like it was going to be an episode giving that. It felt like it started very, what is this show even really trying to do? And now I guess we have a vague idea, and it's okay, but it's episode 4 to introduce that is a little strange. You should be giving your audience something earlier. Well, really, by episode 3, you should just have people saying whether or not they're going to be interested in a show or not. And in that regard, I feel like there's probably more information that's going to happen, more events that are going to actually happen. Yeah, they did set up something for maybe episode 5 that I'm definitely interested in seeing. But, you know, whatever. It's not a perfect show or anything like that. Classroom for Heroes episode 4. Speaking of not perfect shows, you know, the stuff that happened in here, I guess, was interesting enough, but this is when it started feeling a little... So if Hulk maybe isn't feeling like it's being rushed, or Rurouni Kenshin doesn't feel like it's being rushed, I almost feel like this episode gave some impressions of feeling either rushed or ill-timed. Like, it felt like we transitioned from the previous episode to the next episode in the middle of this episode. Because otherwise, the events that happened were pretty interesting. But like I said, thematically, it fell apart a little bit, which maybe isn't that big of a surprise. I wouldn't say that the themes were bad or anything. It's just like, it was just really weird episode. At least for half the episode. Jobless Reincarnation, Season 2, Episode 4. One of the things that was really great about this episode, so I mentioned, like, looking up information about the stinger from the previous episode, and one thing I remember people saying is, oh, they mentioned this thing happening, but they didn't actually show us. But no, Episode 4 actually shows it, so, you know, they're not taking the cheap way out. That was just to keep us informed on, okay, there's a jump in time and there's an important thing that happens, but this is why this other character is about to become relevant. And I'm beginning to get a better picture of what season 2 is trying to do, other than kind of mope around melancholy, which I wouldn't say what's happened in the first 3 episodes to necessarily be that bad, just maybe not to be Jobless Reincarnation's strongest stuff, but episode 4 is definitely where it's like trying to point us and or itself in the right direction, I suppose. So I'm definitely curious to see where it's going to go. I have to say, though, one of the unfortunate things about finishing this episode is I did feel kind of melancholic and like, well, I want to just go on watching the next episode and just not go to work for like a week and just we'll finish season 2. Which obviously isn't going to happen because not only is season 2 not there, but we've got important projects going on at work. So I wouldn't just up and disappear on people like that. I don't know. That would be a scary thing for more than one reason. I was just thinking one of the things that would make something like that have to happen would of course make it hard to finish watching these anime, because the next thing on the list is Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead. So if you didn't know, episode 4 got delayed a day. So while normally it would have come out on Sunday, my time, it didn't come out until Monday, my time, which was earlier today. So I did watch it, and if you didn't know that the episode was just delayed a day and you put off watching episode 4 because you just expect it next week, well, guess what? You should probably go and watch it. Especially if you're enjoying the series enough. Because I'd say episode 4 was actually a good episode. But if there's any problem I see with this series, it reminds me of a criticism of The Dark Knight, in that maybe it's a little too intense. I don't think I'd be able to binge watch this show because it's, while it does some fun things and its characters have very interesting personalities, it does still, there are people talking about some stuff that's just like, it makes you question your life, I guess. Maybe not why am I alive, but more like, how did I end up where I ended up? And this could be something that's, you know, probably more effective on somebody that's been in the workforce for a couple of decades, and maybe y'all are of a different age. Maybe some of y'all never had to go into the workforce, have yet to go into the workforce, and maybe, you know, you just never had to experience it. Maybe you don't think about that stuff, and maybe it doesn't impact as much. I'm not really sure, but I'm definitely curious. But I know for me, it's just like a shit anime. I've never had a problem where I've questioned what are my dreams in life. Spoiler alert, I'm not a very ambitious person, so I don't tend to dream forward. I like to be aware of where I'm at, so to speak. You know, forward facing, but I don't know. I just don't dream, oh, maybe I could be an astronaut. Truth of the matter is, if you had asked younger me, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? Maybe the closest would be a video game maker, but mostly that was because I saw, I had a clear picture of, I actually just enjoy coding and working on computers and all that stuff, and video games were just my outlet there, and I wouldn't say that's really my dream. It was really, I want to be making programs that I can see the output for, and I no longer need a video game in order to see that, to think about that, to play around with that. My games were not all that notable. I guess the only one that would be notable would be a quick basic game I made that's pretty big and pretty intense. But not many people would have heard about it. Again, I'm not very ambitious, so I wouldn't have like published it, but that one was neat. A lot of neat thoughts that go into that. The knowledge won't be very useful to anybody going into the future because nobody does EGA graphics, especially in Quick Basic. I'll give you a hint. The Screen Mode 7 is definitely your cheat ticket for making some rather sexy graphics. Maybe not like high detailed stuff, but stuff that you're like, oh wow, I didn't know you could do this with a Quick Basic program. And maybe it doesn't seem like as much today because there's a lot better languages with a lot more processing power and a lot more libraries and frameworks, and it's you know, you can branch out. But you know, when it comes to just doing a lot of stuff from scratch, you know, Basic helps you with a lot of basic stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It's a thought. I'm digressing. Dark Gathering episode 4. appreciating some of the plot twists that happen in this episode. Not that they're like big, mind-blowing ones, but they are still ones that are just like, it keeps the show from feeling like it's just a mystery of the week kind of show. Oh, let's go here. There's a cursing. Oh, now let's go here. There's a cursing. So it is essentially doing that, but it is doing it in a way that's not very Monster of the Week, and feels like it's a continuously building narrative. And so some of the plot twists or reveals that are in this episode are things that aren't like, oh, I should have been seeing that the whole time. Some of them are just like, oh, very interesting. So I'd say it's being a pretty decent show. I'm burping a lot again. I apologize for that. And I've got hiccup. Sweet Reincarnation, episode 6. Nice episode, I'd say. With, again, the main problem with it and the series in general being that the stuff that's neat that's happening in it doesn't feel like it has much to do with the underlying theme. But if you put that aside and you just watch it, then the only real problem is that, why did that episode have to end at that point? I wanted to see what was going to happen after that. I want to see the aftermath of events that happen. And that's fine. It pretty much means I'll wait till next week to see what happens next. Entertaining stuff. Level 1 Demon Lord and One Room Hero, episode 5. You know, it's... let's see, what all happened in it. I guess entertaining enough stuff. I like the feeling of the slice of life elements of this, especially the way they're spiced up with the slight fantasy elements that are omnipresent. So, you know, just enjoying it in general. It's interesting that this episode did bring up the question. I'm like, wait, isn't this a point of confusion in this show? Where it's like, is the Demon Lord a boy or a girl? Do they have mommy parts or daddy parts? And the show's kind of like, it definitely approached that question on the nose and deliberately didn't answer it, I would say. Not that I've not seen fan works that kind of suggest the way certain people are interpreting some of the stuff, but you know, it's an interesting thing. But I'd say that you watch the show more because there's a kind of wholesomeness to it in its slice of lifiness that's kind of nice. It's like, and maybe there's a part of this is that my expectations were kind of weird because the Demon Lord character themselves, they were, their character design is easily one that would have been an annoying nag. If at best, you know, usually they make little characters that look like trolls and they are like, nagging is the least of the problems they do. Maybe they're just always whining and, you know, just kind of dragging you down, dragging you around, just always being an annoyance on the screen. And they're the opposite of that. It's nice to see them and Max together. So, I wonder what the Demon Lord's name is. Don't remember. Max as a hero name, easy to remember, I suppose. But, you know, overall, you know, enjoying it as a kind of calm, simple slice of life thing. Okay, is there anything else to talk about? I'm definitely starting to flex my Dead by Daylight muscles again, because I just kind of went completely kaput on that for a week or two. But I'm at the point where I need to make sure I'm ready to be playing it, because not only is there another event coming up, and I guess they're going to announce another chapter, aren't they? Huh. I'm going to be kind of falling behind on chapters. But Tears of the Kingdom is definitely nearing the end. There's a very real possibility I finish playing it this weekend. Basically, at this point, I've done all side adventures, side quests, found all shrines, all caves, all wells. I've upgraded the armors I want to upgrade. I've got ideas on where I go to restock certain things. So at this point, it's just a matter of, do I want to find more Korok seeds to max out my shield slots? not feeling it that strongly because I'm a coward. I don't use shields that much. I was surprised to see one finally break. It's a shield that I've had for like 100 or 200 hours because I just don't use shields that much. But at this point, I think the only things left on my radar are I want to fight all the bosses again. I think you get 3 of each down in the depths. And then once I do that, I guess restock up on, my weaponry stuff, and then just go into endgame, I think. I'm not sure how far I am, but I suspect there's not much left. And I could look online to find out, but the truth of the matter is, at this point, I'm pretty close to about to do that. So, yeah, if I don't finish it this weekend, it's because I've been really putting off finishing this last stuff, or I found something other big to do, but most likely I am nearing the end. So, how has it been so far? Quite fun. I'm going to miss it once I'm done with it. I guess maybe there might be DLC, but if it's anything like the Breath of the Wild DLC, I'll probably get it, but never play it. Well, I guess I played the Breath of the Wild DLC a little bit. But once I lose my momentum from these Zelda games, I lose momentum. So, you can expect that. Alright, is there anything else worth talking about? I don't think so. Y'all have heard me chat for long enough. Y'all, have a nice week.